5 MTA workers have died from the coronavirus. Bus driver Ernesto Hernandez, bus mechanic Warren Tucker, along with Scott Alaya, Oliver Cyrus, and Peter Petrassi. Joining us via Zoom is John Samuelsen. He is the international president of the Transport Workers Union. Thank you so much for being with us, John. Tell us about your workers and their health.
Well, our workers are absolutely on the front line of this calamity, and unfortunately, we've had another 2 fatalities announced this morning, beyond the names that you just mentioned. And, you know, very, very trying times for us, uncharted territory.
Do your people have what they need to protect themselves while they're working?
We have masks now, and we only have masks because of the Transport Workers Union. There was resistance from the company of giving out masks to frontline transit workers, and unfortunately, it took some threats to the MTA to get those masks, and we're still waiting on gloves. But otherwise, there's been somewhat of a cooperative discussion going on between the president of the Local 100, Tony Atano, and the chairman of the MTA, Pat Foy, and President Sarah Feinberg. So there's been dialogue, but they were a bit late in the game in getting out the PPE that we desperately need on these front lines.
You mentioned Pat Foy. He has also tested positive for COVID-19.
He has, and you know, we wish him the best of luck. But this subway is the greatest spreader of the disease that one could imagine.
Now, John, they were cleaning several times a day there, and there seems to be less people on the subway. Is that true? You tell me, your people are on the front lines there.
Yeah, there's less people on the subway, and there's less transit workers on the subway. So we've taken steps to mitigate the amount of density in the subway and in crew rooms. But nonetheless, every time somebody rides the subway who's positive for COVID-19, they're spreading it.
You mentioned that there are 2 more people that may have passed on who were part of your union. Do you have names yet? Do you want to talk about them yet?
Well, Ernesto Hernandez, the bus operator from Gleason Depot, and a bus mechanic named Warren Tucker. So, unfortunately, I think this is going to become the norm. We're going to be announcing casualties from this war that we're engaged in against COVID-19. And again, you know, we recognize the duty that we have. We recognize the duty. We've stepped up after every calamity that's hit New York, whether it was the World Trade Center attacks or Hurricane Sandy, but also the idea that we would be used as cannon fodder in the war against COVID-19 without proper protective equipment is just, it's not happening. So whatever equipment we need going forward, it better be there.
Gotcha. Okay, we have a statement from the MTA, and this is what they say. We've been working with TWU Local 100 on these issues since day one. The MTA is adhering to the guidance of the CDC, State Department of Health, and public health authorities. We're doing everything we can to protect our employees, providing 75,000 masks per week and growing, to workers, reducing the number of crews that need to come in, implementing rear door boarding to ensure social distance for operators, eliminating cash transactions, and aggressively disinfecting workplaces, among other steps, while we continue to move the heroes on the front lines of this crisis, including nurses, doctors, and transit workers. Your reaction to their statement?
Yeah, so the statement is accurate. There is a lot of mitigation going on. And unfortunately, the gloves are not here yet, and the masks came awfully late. That was just 2 short weeks ago where there was a dispute with the MTA about whether or not workers would be allowed to wear masks to begin with. And, you know, we knew, workers know what we have to do to protect our families. And it was ridiculous 2 weeks ago to think that masks were somehow inappropriate for transit workers. And we're at the point now where we've compelled the MTA to provide masks. The idea that masks were inappropriate for transit workers is ridiculous. And I think in the aftermath of the World Trade Center attacks, when Christine Todd Whitman went on the air and said that the air was safe to breathe in Lower Manhattan, I don't think any worker in their right mind believes anybody in government when they tell a worker what's good for the health of their family and the health of their own co-workers and themselves.
John, are you telling your people to go to work?
Yeah, we're telling our people to go to work. In fact, we don't even have to tell our people to go to work, because our people are the most dedicated workforce you could ever imagine. and we recognize our duty. We recognize our responsibility to transport healthcare professionals and emergency service workers throughout the city during this calamity. We recognize that we are the frontline transportation network that is really transporting the soldiers fighting this war against COVID-19. But again, we're just not going to be used as cannon fodder. We don't want to be used recklessly. And unfortunately, I think that the fatalities that you're seeing and the amount of infections among transit workers could have been mitigated against if the personal protective equipment came a lot earlier than it did.
Also, we should mention that you also lost a conductor last week. Had nothing to do with COVID-19, I believe, but with some kind of fire in Harlem. Do you have any update on that situation? It happened on Friday.
Yeah, we're told that there's a suspect in custody now. What an atrocious thing. And I think COVID-19 has really turned the whole world upside down. And there's a sense of tension in the city now that it's bizarre. It's a palpable tension. It's like a high tension wire. And although it's not directly related to the coronavirus, the murder of our train operator, it's an indicator that the world is really just a crazy place right now.
Well, John, we appreciate all that your workers are doing for our city. Thank you so much. We appreciate and good health to all.
Thank you very much.
John Samuelsen, the International President of the Transport Workers Union.